Hey guys, it's Face here and welcome back to a little bit of a different video. Today I'm going to be doing a heavily requested video that you guys wanted to see. You've been letting me know in the comment section below that you'd like to see me do one of these. I did one last year and it was a little bit controversial, and basically it's going to be predicting the Premier League table for the end of the season. So obviously, it's, like I say, a little bit controversial. Some people have very different opinions. In fact, everyone will have different opinions on this. So leave your opinions and your thoughts about where you think various teams will finish in the comments section below, and I'll be interested to read and reply. Before we get into the video, if you'd like to join my Fantasy Football League, then just use the code on screen now and also in the description as well below, and you can join, we can compete and see how many points we can get come the end of the season. Of course, it's completely free. You just need to click the link in the description below, create your team, and then join the league, and obviously use that code that is on screen and also in the description below. Like I say, we can use it to compete and see what each other's teams are and see whereabouts we all end up come the end of the season. Anyway, on to the video. I'll be going through the whole league, starting from the bottom. I'll be going upwards, of course, to the eventual Premier League winners that I believe will be the winners. I'll be talking a little bit about them. Of course, it's very, very difficult to get these predictions right. Last season, if you didn't see that one, I only got one right. I think it was Liverpool or Arsenal I got right. I can't remember now. So I didn't even bother reacting to them because they were so off. But undoubtedly, you will have different opinions to me. But just let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. And of course, I'm not helped by the fact that the transfer window is still open, so changes can be made to these teams, additions can be made, but also players can be sold as well, and we'll see that particularly as we get to the top end of the league table. But okay, let's first of all begin by starting right at the bottom with the team that I think will finish rock bottom of the Premier League come the end of the season, and I'm going to go with Brighton in 20th place. I think I'm going to finish rock bottom. I'm not a huge fan of some of the signings that they've made. Not made that many signings I've been too impressed with. I don't think they've spent the money that wisely, to be honest. It must be fairly difficult to recruit the players, of course, when you're a newly promoted team, but I just don't really see enough strength in that squad to be able to compete with some of the big teams that have been well established in the Premier League this season. So I've gone with Brighton in 20th, and let me know again what you think about these relegation teams as well as the teams at the top as well. So on to 19th place, and I've gone with Huddersfield, another newly promoted side that I believe will be finishing in the relegation zone and go straight back down come the end of the season. I do actually think Huddersfield has spent slightly better than Brighton, hence why they're a little bit further in front, but I just don't know whether they have the quality. I don't think they have any proven Premier League players really in the team, so I think they are going to really struggle, as they'd expect, I think, to be honest, this season. They have spent big amounts of money on some strikers in particular, broken their club records a few times as well this summer. I just don't really see them being able to get out of that relegation zone. I think it's going to be very tough, and again, like I say, there's so many teams in the Premier League that are well established and that have got really good players. I just can't really see the likes of Brighton and Huddersfield competing with them. Now on to 18th place, again, another newly promoted side. That means that I think all of them will go straight back down this season, which is a little bit unusual. I can't remember the last time that happened, but I think Newcastle will finish in 18th place, and again, they haven't really spent the money very well. I know there's some argument to say that actually they've not done as much business as Brighton and Huddersfield. Of course they haven't, but I still think there's going to be some more from Newcastle. Of course we can't say for certain, but I still think there's going to be some more business from them. They've signed Moreno, I think, on loan from Dortmund, which is a good signing, I think, but they need to add more players. I think they will do that come the end of the transfer window, and I also think Rafa's going to try and really get the best out of the players that he currently has in the team. I do, however, accept that they haven't made as many transfers as Huddersfield and Brighton. I just think that they are still going to finish slightly in front of them, but of course it doesn't really matter regardless. If you go down, don't you? So I think Newcastle will be another team that goes straight back down, unfortunately, but again, I could be proven wrong, and if they bring in some better players towards the end of the window, which I reckon they will, then there is a chance that they could just about stay up. Now on to the next team that I think have just managed to keep themselves out of the relegation zone. I'm going to go Watford, and again, Watford for me haven't really brought in too many big names. They've signed a couple of players recently, one Brazilian guy I think signed fairly recently, that they've brought, I think is an attacker that brought in from one of the Brazilian clubs. So that seems like an okay signing, but again, not really heard of, not really established. I think scored 5 goals last season, so, you know, it's not anything too spectacular, and I haven't been that impressed. They obviously signed Chalobah as well, which is an okay signing, but again, is he a game changer? Probably not, to be honest. And again, I just don't really see them being able to cope with all the competition in this Premier League. So I don't think they'll get relegated, although I wouldn't be that surprised if they do. But in my prediction, I've not got them as getting relegated, because I just think they'll have enough quality, enough Premier League experience with the likes of Troy Deeney and other players that they already have in the squad, Gomez in goal, of course, to be able to just about keep themselves in the Premier League. But I think it'll be very close, and they could well slip into it throughout the season. Next up, we have Burnley. I think are going to finish 16th. That's going to be my prediction anyway. Again, this is a very tricky one. I wasn't really too sure where to put Burnley. They could have gone in a few positions, probably even further up, to be honest. So it's a little bit of a tricky one where to put them. I have gone them a little bit further down than maybe usual or maybe you'd expect. I just don't, again, feel like they have the strength in the squad. I think at some point they're going to crumble. I think last season they didn't actually do that badly, I didn't think, considering the squad that they had compared to other teams. I just don't really see that continuing. They signed Charlie Taylor from Leeds, as I know as a Leeds fan. I just don't know how much of an improvement that will be. There's not been enough improvement for my liking from the transfers that they've made. So for me, I think they're going to finish 16th. Stoke City to finish in 15th. That's what I'm predicting. They got rid of Arnautovic to West Ham. I say got rid of. They sold him. I mean, they didn't really want to get rid of him. I wouldn't have thought ideally. But they've got £25 million from him. Again, you could well see them dive into the transfer window in the final few weeks and make a big signing, and that could all change. They could be higher up than 15th or whatever, but I just don't quite see them being able to go any higher up than that for me. I think 15th, around that sort of area, maybe 14th if they're lucky, but to be honest, it won't make that much of a difference. I reckon they'll be in a roughly that sort of position come the end of the season. Swansea 14th, I'm expecting them to do much better than they did for most of last season. I think they've got, obviously, a great manager in Paul Clement. I think he's going to do a great job this season, and I've been quite impressed with them actually in pre-season. I think they beat, was it Sampdoria? It might have been someone else. Can't remember now, but they beat them 4-0 regardless, and actually seemed to play pretty well. Of course, Sigurdsson is going to probably leave by the end of the transfer window. That gives them 50 million. You'd hope that they spend some of that cash, really, wouldn't you? Reinvest in the team and bring in several big names that I think could really help them. It does also seem like Tammy Abraham's doing a good job as well for them up front. I just see Swansea surprising a few this season, and that's why I'm saying they're going to finish 14th. I've gone Crystal Palace 13th. Now, again, maybe a little bit controversial, maybe a little bit too high up for some people, but I think the new manager coming in, they brought in a couple of good young signings as well. I think they're actually starting to develop quite a good squad, and I have a confidence in the manager that, and this is maybe putting myself on the line a little bit here, come the end of the season, we don't know where they're going to finish, but I think that manager is going to do really, really well. I think he's going to take Palace up a level, to be honest, from where they've been in previous seasons. So hopefully, if this prediction is right, they'll finish around about 13th, and I'm expecting quite a good season from them compared to seasons that we've seen in the past where they've been fighting relegation. I'd hope to see a better Crystal Palace this season. And then in 12th, I've gone with West Brom, maybe a little bit higher up again for some people. Maybe they expect a Tony Pulis style team to be a little bit further down, but I think they're going to actually be a little bit higher up than people expect. I'm going to go 12th position. They've not had a great pre-season. I don't know how many games they've won. I don't think it's too many, and I expect them to recover from that a little bit better. I think the team's quite resilient. I think when they get into the Premier League games, Tony Pulis will manage to turn it on and get those players finally playing better for him. So I'm going to say 12th position. Again, a really tricky one. It's those sort of mid-table teams that you could see them go much higher. You could also see them drop down and be fighting relegation. But for me, I think that we'll see West Brom finish 12th position. And then in 11th position, I've gone Southampton. Now, this is maybe a little bit lower down than, again, people will be expecting. Usually they finish a bit higher up, but I think with the changes that they'll see at the club, Van Dijk leaving, I think that's going to disturb things quite a lot. And I just think with the other teams that have spent much better than them, the Everton, the West Hams, the Leicesters, and also Bournemouth, I think, as well. I'm expecting all those teams to be higher up than them because they've brought in better players. Jermaine Defoe going into Bournemouth, of course, amongst many others going into those different teams. I just don't see Southampton being able to compete as well. I still think they'll be around 11th place, maybe a couple of places further up, but for me, I don't see them beating the other sides that have probably gone up another level this summer. So I've also gone Bournemouth in 10th. Now, if Jermaine Defoe can stay fit, if he can stay playing as well as he has been relative to the team he's been in, of course, this season, then I expect Jermaine Defoe to do really, really well for Bournemouth. Hopefully, if he can stay fit, like I say, he's obviously an ageing player now into the latter stage of his career, but if he can still get them some goals, then I expect him to finish in 10th position. That's what I'm going to go with. I'm going to say they're going to finish higher than Southampton, which will be quite an achievement, obviously, for Bournemouth to be able to do that. Again, I still think maybe they need one or two new players. They've got the likes of Lewis Cook coming back from injury. He'll be more involved this season. And I also expect them to maybe bring in one or two more players come the end of the transfer window. We've also seen Nathan Ake come in as well. That was big money for him, and I think that's going to be a really good signing. We saw that when he left for Chelsea, or got recalled, I should say, that they did have a dip in performance. So him back in the side will certainly help them. And then I've gone with Leicester City in 9th position. Now, we're obviously not expecting them to be high up as they were, not last season, but the season before when they won the Premier League. But I'm expecting them to be much, much better this season than the way that they were last season under Ranieri. So what I expect them to do this season with the signings of Iheanacho and a few others as well, I'm expecting them to take it up a level again. I think they're going to finish about 9th position. I'm expecting Iheanacho to be a huge signing for them. They spent big money on him, and I really think he's going to go do a really good job alongside Jamie Vardy, and I'm expecting those two to be getting loads and loads of goals and carrying Leicester City to about a 9th position place in the league. Okay, so in 8th position, I've gone West Ham. This one was a really tricky one. I obviously last season they didn't do very well. The season before they did pretty well. This season I expect them to go back up a little bit again. They didn't manage to find their consistency last season, didn't manage to find too many good performances in their new stadium, but I think this season might well be a better one for them. They've obviously signed some really big players, brought in some great names. Hernandez and Arnautovic obviously stick out as the two main ones, along with Joe Hart, of course, on loan. So I think those three signings in particular really are a big statement for West Ham. It's whether they can bring those players together and play well. I wasn't so impressed with how they played against Man City in Iceland not so long back, but hopefully they can bring it all together for the Premier League games, and I reckon they're going to finish in about 8th position. Okay, into 7th now, and I'm going to say Everton to finish in 7th place. Again, they've spent lots of money this summer, and they might well be adding to it as well with a huge amount of money for Sigurdsson. That could come a little bit later on in the transfer window. It's difficult to say right now, but the signings of Klaas-San, Wayne Rooney, amongst others as well, have been really, really impressive for Everton. I watched them a little bit in pre-season. They seem to be doing great. They've also been working a lot on the passing and the movement in the midfield in particular, and they looked quite good at times in the Europa League matches. So I think Everton are going to finish fairly high. I'm going to say 7th position. Some people argue that they're going to be challenging a little bit higher up this season. For me, I don't think they have enough world-class players in that squad to be able to challenge that top 6 just yet. They need to go another step further next summer and bring in a proper world-class player. Of course, we've got the likes of Ross Barkley to potentially sell. There's a few sort of teams wanting him, and if they use that money to try and bring in someone like a Sigurdsson or maybe someone else, then obviously that could really help them. The signing of Sigurdsson would definitely help them in their quest for the top 6 though, so if that was to happen, then maybe there could be an argument to say that they might finish a little bit higher than 7th. Now into the top 6. This is where things get probably more controversial than the mid-table teams and the relegation teams. I've gone in 6th position, Liverpool. Probably a little bit lower than Liverpool fans would like to hear, but again, this is my prediction. You probably disagree. In fact, if you're a Liverpool fan, you will disagree. And again, it's difficult to know because Coutinho could be leaving to Barcelona. We really don't know what's going to happen here. But I actually reckon in real life he might well leave come the end of the transfer window. But I think Liverpool are going to finish in 6th. I've not been massively impressed with them. I know obviously they did fairly well in pre-season, winning a few different trophies and things, all the pre-season tournaments. But I just don't really see it coming together for them. I think they're going to have too much competition in those 5 teams in front of them to be able to break into that top 6 even further. So for me, I don't see them getting higher than 6th, although they could quite easily get into a 5th position or something like that. Jurgen Klopp, of course, has to get into the top 4 this season, really. If he doesn't do that, then it'll obviously be a huge disappointment. So I think they're going to finish 6th. It's obviously a tough one to take for them, but I just don't see enough improvement in the squad or enough strength in that team to be able to cope with the other challenges that they're facing around them. Daniel Sturridge obviously getting an injury as well won't help them. We'll wait and see how bad that one is. Into 5th position, and I've gone with Arsenal. Now, I predicted Arsenal outside of the Champions League last season. People laughed at me at the time when I did that, and look how that ended up. So I've gone with them finishing again outside of the Champions League. Now, these predictions were actually done before the Community Shield, so obviously that performance against Chelsea was pretty good at times, so these could well change. I'm still going to stick with 5th, what I thought was my gut feeling, and obviously Chelsea I'm predicting, as you probably realise, are going to be higher than Arsenal, which again, after that performance against Arsenal, might not necessarily happen, but you never know. I'm going to stick to what I've said before the Community Shield, which was that Arsenal are going to finish in 5th position. Again, I'm not too sure exactly what to expect from the new signings. I don't know if Sanchez is going to be staying or leaving. If he's going to be involved in the squad next season, like he seems to be, then they could well do better than that. They could well break into the Champions League places. However, I'm not so sure that team is going to quite come together enough to be able to cope with the bigger matches or not. We did see against Chelsea that they can cope with the big games though, just whether they can do it in the Premier League week in, week out against some of the better teams that, for me, have better squads like Manchester City, Man United, those are the teams. So for me, I'm going to say Arsenal finishing in 5th position, but again, they could well finish higher if that team can come together and play much better. Okay, top 4, now into the Champions League places. Again, after that Community Shield game, these could really have changed quite dramatically. So we are going to go in 4th position, Tottenham. Now, again, some people will probably reckon that Tottenham should be further down than Arsenal, given the transfer business this summer. I just think Tottenham still have a really good team. Yes, they've not really built on that side, but they've still got a good team. They're still getting good results in pre-season, and I just think that even though they haven't brought in too many players, and I don't think they will, to be honest, come the end of the transfer window, I do expect them still to finish in the Champions League places. I think that team is still good enough to be able to do that, considering the additions that other sides around them have had. However, I still think they should really get in 1 or 2 big names. They need to try and get in somebody else to try and fill up that squad a little bit. It is a little bit light at times, and obviously they will use the youngsters to try and fill in those gaps, but ideally you want to be able to have a couple of big names on the bench to be able to compete with those other big names that are on the benches of the other teams that are competing around them. So they need to bring in 1 or 2 more players for my liking, Tottenham, but I still reckon they are going to do better than Arsenal this season. Although, like I say, after watching that Community Shield, then maybe that will change. Okay, so on to the top 3. I've gone with Chelsea in 3rd position. Like I've been going on about the last couple of places that we've been talking about now, the Community Shield might well have changed my thoughts on that. I'm still going to stick with it though for this prediction. We are going to say that Chelsea are going to finish 3rd. I'm hoping Conte, for the sake of this prediction, I'm hoping Conte can pull something out of this team and try and get them back to what they were doing last season. They've also got rid of a lot of players. They haven't really replaced them as well, and they need to plug a few of those gaps still. They've got to sign some new players before the end of the season. Conte will be desperately telling the board to sign some new players. Hopefully, for my prediction's sake anyway, they do, so that they can finish in 3rd position. But yeah, at the moment they're in a difficult position, and that 3rd, 4th and 5th positions that I predicted, those could really change quite dramatically come the end of the season, maybe even the 6th position as well. Those 4 teams in particular could really be anywhere. But for me, we are going to now move on to the top 2, because these ones, for me, I think are going to happen. I'm pretty sure that these 2 teams will be the top 2. And of course, I'm talking about the Manchester clubs. I'm going to say in 2nd place is going to be Manchester United. That's what I'm predicting to happen this season. They've brought in some great players, of course. Lukaku coming in, Matic coming in, Lindelof, I think, also at centre-back has come in, amongst other players which seem like they could well come in as well. Have been rumoured that they will still sign 1 or 2 more players. So that could, again, further increase and improve their team. So maybe that will happen. If it does happen, I reckon they'll have a really good season. I still don't think it'll be enough, though, to win the Premier League title. So I'm going to say that they're going to finish 2nd, and that Jose Mourinho will miss out on the Premier League title this season. Again, very, very difficult, but I think it'll be the 2 Manchester clubs at the top. And of course, that brings me to the final place of the league table. 1st place, I'm going to say, is going to be Manchester City. Now, maybe a little bit biased because I do quite like City, but I just think their team is so strong. Again, so strong. Pep Guardiola, I'm hoping, has learned from last season, and now, as we've seen in pre-season, has really improved the side. He's changed the formation as well, so it's not just a 4 at the back now. It's not a 4-2-3-1 or whatever, or a 4-3-3. He's now going with a 3 at the back or a 5 at the back, and he's mixing things up a little bit more, and it seems to have really worked for Manchester City in pre-season. They're looking really strong. They've looked fantastic against some of the teams they've played. So hopefully we can see a really, really good performance from Manchester City this season. Of course, they lost to Man United at the start. They were playing 4 at the back for a start, and it was also their first pre-season game, and Manchester United's 2nd or something. So I think Manchester United have had more preparation at that point. I reckon Man City will beat Manchester United to the league title. Again, though, this is just my thoughts. You'll have a different thought, especially if you're a Manchester United fan, no doubt. So I'm going to say Manchester City to win the Premier League. I think Pep Guardiola will have learned from his lessons last season, and the players that he's brought in are undoubtedly, I think, some of the bigger names and some of the bigger signings that we've seen in the transfer window as a set of players that he's brought in. New fullbacks, Bernardo Silva as well coming in, and maybe even a couple more come the end of the window. So for me, I just think it's such a strong City side, obviously with Ederson coming in goal as well, that I just can't see any other teams competing with them, or at least not competing enough to be able to win the Premier League. And that concludes my prediction of the Premier League table for this upcoming season. Now let's be honest here, we have 6 or 7 teams in the league that currently have to all pretty much get Champions League football, or all be aiming for Champions League football. Of course, you can't have 6 or 7 teams finish in the Champions League places, so there's going to be a lot of managers with their jobs on the line this season. It's going to be a very, very competitive season as well between all 6 or 7 teams. You could argue Everton really trying to push for Champions League football. I don't think they've got the quality to do that. So I think it's between those 6 teams that I've mentioned in my top 6 that really will be fighting it out, with all those managers wanting Champions League football. I mean, if you think about it, you've got Jurgen Klopp potentially couldn't get it, Arsene Wenger couldn't potentially, Pochettino might not necessarily, Conte might not as well. So there's loads of different managers there that you would expect to be getting Champions League football every season, and some of those managers just won't be able to get Champions League football this season. So we'll wait and find out what happens come the end of the season. Don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comment section below about not just my predictions but also your predictions as well. And yeah, we will wait and see what happens at the end of the season, how many I get right, hopefully a little bit more than 1 like I did last season. Also, don't forget to join my fantasy football league. You can use the link in the description below, and also use that little code as well to join my league, and we can compete with each other on there. Don't forget to do that. Don't forget also to hit that subscribe button, and also like this video as well. I'd really appreciate it. And like I say, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Over 12,000 subscribers now, so thank you all so much for that. I really appreciate it. And also you can follow me on Twitter as well, at GameFaceHD, and GameFaceHD also on Instagram as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.